First Western Leopard 2 tanks have been destroyed in Ukraine. But it's not what you think. It actually happened during a training exercise on a training field. I'm itching to do the Volkswagen Das Auto meme logo into it. You know what I'm talking about. Accidents happen during training. Or was it an accident? Maybe someone was trying to cash in on Kremlin's money prize. Kremlin has promised a lot of money to anyone who destroys a Leopard, and maybe, you know, somebody just tried to cash in. I'm just joking, it's a military training accident. This is a video of soldiers saluting a bus full of Ukrainian soldiers who finished their training in the UK and now are going to the front. For me, it shows the solidarity of the Western support towards Ukraine. UK has promised to train 10,000 Ukrainian troops at the time. They would train them, complete their training, and then give them full gear and send them back to Ukraine. Training in some instances is even more necessary and expensive than modern Western weaponry. But of course, both are needed. Thank you, UK, for doing this. Before we go on, my friends, here's a little treat for you. Cold turkey may be great on sandwiches, but there's a better way to break your bad habits. I'm not talking about some weird mind voodoo from your crazy neighbor. I'm talking about my sponsor, Fume, and they look at the problem in a different way. Not everything in a bad habit is wrong, so instead of drastic, uncomfortable change, why not just remove the bad from your habit? Fume is an innovative, award-nominated device that does just that. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. Instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. And instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses all natural, delicious flavors. It's a habit you're free to enjoy and makes replacing your bad habit easy. Your Fume comes with adjustable airflow dial and is designed with movable parts and magnets for fidgeting, giving your fingers a lot to do, which is helpful for de-stressing and anxiety while breaking your habit. I love the way it feels in my hand. It's wood and metal. I don't really like plastic, and also the sound it makes when you adjust it. Stopping is something we all put off because it's hard. But switching to Fume is easy, enjoyable, and even fun. Fume has served over 100,000 customers and has thousands of success stories. And there's no reason that can't be you. Join Fume in accelerating humanity's breakup from destructive habits by picking up the journey back today. Head to tryfume.com/Estonian or scan the QR code and use the code Estonian to get 10% off when you get the journey pack today. That's tryfum.com and use the code Estonian to save an additional 10% off on your order today. Did you miss him? I hear his drunken voice already and his rambling tongue and his bald head. I can feel his presence. It's Prigozhin again, being a clown. In this one we see Prigozhin in a church. In Easter, lighting a candle for the fallen Russian soldiers and for the fallen Wagner troops. This shows that he is an affectionate, compassionate human being. Let's watch how compassionate he is. Look, he's putting a candle in the church. This shows that he cares about his men. And he's doing the cross. This shows that he is a man of God. And now another soldier puts the candle. They both care about the fallen. And then he does the cross. They're in a church, in front of an icon which is probably very old and respected, painted by monks. As in Orthodox tradition, monks paint these icons, and these monks have given the vow of celibacy, spending their whole lives in church, devoting themselves to God. There's no violence in their lives, there's no women in their lives. And now Prigozhin comes here and pretends to be next to these icons, connecting himself with life of religion, life of purity. What a mad lad, a religious mad lad. Well, for once I can tell you he's not religious. I don't think he believes in God, because no God-fearing man can behave the way he does. But he does make a great clown. Without him, I wouldn't have anything to watch, and you wouldn't have anything to eat your popcorn with. So thank you, Mr. Precaution. In a new report about NATO security, it was brought out that sometimes Ukrainian troops receive weapons, weapon crates with weapons in them without instructions. Not all the soldiers have gotten instructions about all the weapons, and sometimes there's no professionals nearby, so they have to call customer service, which in this case is a Western weapons officer. Ukrainian soldiers reported that they have gotten instructions how to first time use a rocket-propelled grenade launcher through a messenger app or communication apps like WhatsApp or Viber. At one instance, a Ukrainian soldier even FaceTimed a Western weapons officer who taught the entire unit how to use a weapon system through FaceTime. Modern problems require modern solutions, my friends. You can call it the Western Tech Customer Support. Next video is translated by Word Translated, links in the description below. We watched it to understand the Russian mobbing situation, mobilized troop situation on the front. I covered a lot of these videos when mobilization started, a lot of these mobbings complaining videos. When there's so many of them, it gets repetitive. But I can bring some in for you to get the taste again. He's a freshly mobilized troop, as I understand. He's already doing good. The helmet is modern. He has a flak vest. And he has boots. I've seen Russian troops with old helmets without a vest and with sneakers, so he's already fine. He has gotten the better gear of the Russian army.
2 апреля 2023 года. Мой позывной казах. Возможно, после этого видеообращения мне дадут по башке, меня больше никто никогда не найдет, но терпеть просто нету больше никаких сил. За моей спиной находится Угледар.
Vuhledar is the area where about 2 months ago, 3 months ago, there was this huge Russian column of tanks which attacked on the road, and it was annihilated by Ukrainian mines, artillery, and troops who shot the column to pieces. Vuhledar was a huge failure of attack during Russian big winter offensive, and now there are only defensive positions for Russians there. They didn't attack anymore after that because it was such a failure. It was so bad, and now he's part of that defense.
Мы находимся на самом переднем крае. Сейчас мы получили по соплям. По нам работало стрелковое оружие, АГСы, минометы. Мы забились в норы, как мыши, и не вылазили оттуда, пока все это не закончилось. Благо не было прямых попаданий, поэтому все 6 из нас живы и здоровы. Хвала Всевышнему. Нам не платят суточных и боевых, потому что якобы мы не штурмуем.
So the thing is, yeah, they don't pay their salaries, which is bad enough, but I'm gonna open up with what he means by dailies. They are on the front line 600 meters from Vuhledar. If you're in the Russian army, you are promised a daily extra coefficient or extra money for being so close to the front. But you have to be assaulting for that. You have to be in an assault brigade or assault battalion, but they are supposedly not assaulting, but they kind of are. I mean, if you're 600 meters from the front or from the enemy line, you are by de facto an assault unit if you're so close to it. But the Kremlin doesn't see it that way, and they don't pay the salaries, and they also don't pay these daily extra promised money. I don't think they pay that to anybody. They just promise that to get the troops there, and they cannot leave anyway, so...
Мы не штурмуем, но находимся на передке, хотя находиться здесь не должны, а должны находиться в зеленой зоне территориальной обороны, так как мы мобилизованы.
It's so weird that for a Russian man, the quickest way to find out about your country really, I mean, they have grown up, let's say this man is 30 years old, he has grown up with 20 years of Putin's propaganda. The quickest way to find out what his country is really about and what Putin and Kremlin is really about is to be mobilized. There's no propaganda there anymore because he's in the front, he sees the situation, he sees how he is not getting paid and his state doesn't care about him. The fastest way to clear the minds of a Russian man, to send him to the front, because otherwise he will believe his own propaganda, he will believe the Russian propaganda. I think this man is closer to the light or closer to seeing the truth than he was when he was not mobilized. This is a concert in Moscow of the band Naive, and this is its lead singer Alexander Ivanov. Now he begins to speak on stage about the persecution of Masha Moskaleva's family. Now in Russia you don't do this, in the capital you don't do this. Somebody disappears, somebody's family disappears, you don't talk about it. You stay apolitical, that's the deal with Putin. If you talk about it, you will disappear, and he does it in front of a crowd in the capital. And how the crowd responds, they start to chant Hui Vainie, which means the war, in the capital. Masses chanting this. This shows you the mood. These people don't protest anymore because when the protests happened against mobilization, for example, a lot of the people were just put in jail for years. You don't want to protest after that. Or they were beaten or tortured, or, you know, for women worse things were done. But the mentality remains Hui Vainie. Next video I have included here to boost the moods of everybody, Ukrainians, Americans, everybody who's watching this. I think this will give us some light, because I feel sometimes very down. In my country it's peace, and then I see this Ukrainian soldier who feels much better than me on the front lines. We gotta watch it.
The first meal I was so lucky enough to find in my pocket this energy bar. It's so cool, because today I lost a few combat brothers. Also, I destroyed a few invaders. I received so much emotions for my whole future life. And of course, physically and emotionally disgusted. I'm so appreciated to eat this delicious.
I feel like this man has something to teach to us. In the darkest of hours, if you lose your friends even, you can still be like him. And I know it's easier said than done, but I'm so glad to see the way he feels and he expresses himself.
Energy bar. And I realized that life is amazing, guys. That's true. That's totally true.
He's just an optimist.
If I'll survive here, my life will be even more valuable than before, because I'm sure that life is great present.
Take it from the man from the front. He cannot lie, he doesn't have any need to lie, he might die at any second. I've sometimes reacted to Igor Kirkin, the terrorist who is not in the Russian army, but who is still alive somehow. I don't know how. All the men with his caliber have been killed by the Russian regime, by Kremlin, by Putin. He's alive. Nobody knows how. Now we watch a video why Prigozhin doesn't want him in Wagner. Prigozhin actually invited Kirkin to Wagner, and he denied, and now Prigozhin is very salty about it. I want to see it. Why have I watched Kirkin? Because he is pro-war, he is anti-Ukraine, but the thing is, the things he say are anti-Kremlin. This war is handled extremely poorly by the Kremlin, and he calls the Kremlin out, he calls the Russian Ministry of Defense out for their mistakes. This is why I have watched some of his opinions.
Шансов попасть в ЧВК «Вагнер» 0. Перечисляю. Я предлагал Гиркину Стрелкову идти в ЧВК «Вагнер». Он отказался. Проявился как законченный трус. Трусов мы не берем. Второе. Мы не берем заключенных из зон теперь. Третье. Мы не берем обиженных. И поэтому есть 3 пункта, по которым Гиркина Стрелкова мы не возьмем. Теперь мое личное мнение. Законченный ублюдок, болтун, бесполезное существо.
You can see that Prigozhin is extremely salty towards Kirkin, because Kirkin has also, I think, judged the failures of the Wagner PMC in Ukraine, and their battle tactics are also extremely poor. Kirkin seems to be, military-wise, a very practical man, not to waste lives and to try to do things which make sense on the battlefield, which Russian Ministry of Defense doesn't do and Wagner doesn't do, and he calls them out. And I can see Prigozhin extremely salty. He's so salty that my popcorn doesn't even need extra salt right now. Here's a tweet from Fred Huffman. The more Putin and his buddies express the need to negotiate, the more you realize how terrified the Russians are of the looming Ukrainian offensive. Why I included this here is I completely agree. I've talked about it for so long, for the beginning of this war. Russian doctrine, which is not written anywhere, but if you follow Russian conflicts, with anyone, any power, any structure, they are always aggressive. And the only time they're not aggressive is when they're weak, or when they have failed, or when they need to gather strength. So the only time they want to negotiate is when they are extremely vulnerable or weak or have failed in their aggression and they want to gather strength to be more aggressive in the future. And some stupid people might be gullible or take this info ops as, oh, Russian goodwill gesture, they want to end this war. For example, Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, has now recently said that Russia wants to end this conflict as fast as possible. Of course they do, because they're losing. They're losing this conflict. They want to end it, to freeze it like it was from 2014 to 2022, freeze this for 10 years and then strike again. They have no goodwill. There's no goodwill gestures. I am extremely satisfied to hear this, because if you hear Russians wanting to negotiate, I will translate it to you. We are weak. We failed with our aggression. We need a pause or we will lose. This is my translation to it. 3 days ago, Germany closed their last 3 remaining nuclear power plants. My take on it is this. This is extremely stupid, and it's part of a very long ongoing Russian propaganda in Europe. Russian propaganda has weakened in Europe, but it's still there, but Angela Merkel fully stepped into it, fully embraced it. Nuclear power is extremely green compared to fossil fuels. It is one of the greenest and eco-friendliest power production methods out there, period. And France knows this. They produce an insane amount of country's power necessity by nuclear. But Germany has decided to go fossil fuels, which is one of the dirtiest ways to produce electricity at all. Plus, they will import these fossil fuels, coal, for example, from Russia. And this was Merkel's plan. I don't know why or how she was so blind to step into this. I mean, for me, I'm not an expert on this, but for me it's obvious. Russia wants European countries not to be energy independent. And stepping away from nuclear definitely pushes Germany away from energy independence. And this is what Merkel did by closing down all of the Germany's plants. And now this process has been completed. And for me, it's a sad day for Germany. I hope German people will change their minds about this, because this is their doom. If Germany wants energy independence, nuclear is the way to go. But it is not that black and white, because now the 11th sanctions packet against Russia has been approved, and there is nuclear sanctions, which means the Russian nuclear giant Rosatom will be sanctioned, meaning European countries will not do business with them anymore. And there is France with many nuclear power plants, and they get their nuclear fuel from Russia, Rosatom. If this sanction packet goes through, then France, who opposed to Germany, has opened up more and more plants. Nuclear plants will also be not energy independent, because they depend on Russian nuclear fuel. So to fix this issue, I agree, European Union should sanction Russian Rosatom giant, but like EU found oil and natural gas from other partners, they need to find now nuclear fuel from other partners. If they don't do this, France, for example, is right now dependent on Russia for its electricity production through nuclear fuel. It's a very complicated topic, and I think both countries need to change. Germany needs to change their Russian propaganda view on nuclear power plants. They are very necessary, and they are green, and they're not dangerous. Coal is much more dangerous. And France needs to change the way they get their nuclear fuel from Russia. They need to get it from somewhere else. That's my take on it. As much as I know, there is only one Black Hawk in Ukraine. I've seen only one. There's pictures of it, but actually there's not many. There's only one. We're going to watch a video of that one single Black Hawk now in Ukraine, and the comparison between that and the Russian counterparts.
Made Black Hawk helicopter. At the moment, there is only one in service in the entire Ukrainian armed forces, and that's because at the moment the United States, the State Department, refuses to allow the Ukrainians to buy them. So the pilot and his crew have essentially had to crowdfund to raise $6 million in order to buy it. What the pilot says is that flying the Black Hawk compared to the old Soviet ones is like the difference between trying to drive a truck and driving a Maserati sports car. What they say is that it gives them much more flexibility. They can get many more troops in. It's much easier for the troops to get on and off the helicopter and to fly the combat missions. Helicopters have proved crucial in this battle because it allows the troops to avoid ground forces by Russia to try and take territory and to try and reclaim their land.
I really enjoy the comparison between driving a truck and driving a sports car, Maserati sports car. I do hope the reliability of Black Hawks is not comparable to Maserati, because you know these sports cars, they break down every time you drive them. You have to switch some parts in them. I do hope Black Hawk is more like a truck reliability and more, but it handles like a Maserati. Best from both worlds, you know. Only one Black Hawk, and this is bought by crowdfunding. US refused to sell. These helicopters are old. They're old tech. US has evolved about 40-50 years from then. These new US helicopters they produce now, the newest ones, they're worlds away from Black Hawk, and still they refuse to sell the Black Hawk because Russia is still even behind that. Perhaps the Ka-52 would be equal to the Black Hawk, which is the Russian newest, baddest, newest helicopter, which they only had about 100-150 before the war, about half of which have been destroyed in this conflict already, so they don't have much of them. How many Black Hawks does the US have? This is a column of Polish PT-91-20 main battle tanks in one of the Ukrainian trading grounds. Poland promised these vehicles to Ukraine, these tanks, and they're already in Ukraine, so thank you Poland for being so quick with your aid. It is a Polish main battle tank, development from the T-72M. It entered service in 1995. Unlike many other T-72 upgrades, the PT-91 features elements made almost solely in Poland. This is the Polish great deal. If they strike any weapons deal with America, with South Korea, with Germany, the main point is that we will build these factories in Poland. Everything needs to be able to be built in Poland, assembled in Poland, or fixed in Poland. They're very smart about it. I love the way they do these things. And by giving Ukraine these 20 PT-91 tanks, which have almost all of their logistics in Poland, they don't rely heavily on foreign parts, it fixes one of the biggest issues with Western techs, especially Western main battle tanks, logistics. If any of them break down, they can be sent to Poland, which is right next door and very helpful. The Leopard I opened the video with, that broke down. Where do you send it? Well, they're building the repair factory in Poland right now, but if that isn't ready, you gotta send it back to Germany. That will take months. Trip there, fixing of it, trip back, months. You can fix these PT-91-20s with weeks. This is an insanely necessary ability to fix so fast. My friends, now I will read you 5 patrons who support this channel with tier 10 or above, and they deserve their names to be butchered with my Estonian pronunciation. Tesven, Mikaela Saefe, Lamont Tipple, Rehi Jones, Ulrik Sko Andersen. Thank you to these 5 people, and if you like my videos, my style, Patreon link is in the description below. The fastest and the quickest and the most efficient way to support the channel. Thank you, my friends. And until my next video, Slava Ukraini!